Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Robbie Egan. Robbie works in Trinity College in Dublin in the transport.
Yes, Centre for Transport Research. Yeah.
And Robbie is a cycling researcher and was involved in a 6-month project on cargo bikes in Dunleary.
Great.
And he also happens to be a neighbour of mine. Okay, so take it away, Robbie.
Thanks very much. So you're just controlling the flight ticket, or grand.
It's not. Yeah.
Okay, grand. Cool. Yeah, great. So today I'm just going to talk about as I was saying, a 6-month pilot in DLR County Council, which involved a number of partners, and mainly I'm just going to talk about one aspect of analysis we've done, and there's another kind of qualitative aspect that's being done as we speak. So you can just go next slide, please. And just to mention, this is.
I don't mind. Somebody lights whatever you want to.
Do you want the light on for me?
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Because the camera pick up.
It's okay. Yeah, just to mention, this is based on work that's under review at the moment, so it hasn't been accepted yet. It's in the second round of revision, and it was the lead author on this was Fahim Malik, who's based in the UK at the moment. So yeah, just I want to give a bit of background first of all, just on a little bit about e-cargo bikes, from a kind of academic perspective. Then I'm going to talk about the pilot itself. Then I'm going to talk a bit about the findings, and then finally finish with a little bit about conclusions, looking at the kind of implications of what we found, basically. Go ahead. Oh yeah, I have it as sorry, the animation. Sorry about that. So first of all, e-cargo bikes are increasingly viewed as a kind of last mile delivery solution. So this is in the EU mobility framework at the moment. So it's actually explicitly mentioned, and there are other policy documents. So it is kind of picking up steam at a policy level, which is great to see. And the logistics side is actually something that has huge potential and huge kind of complexities compared to the kind of individual private use. Just next one, please. E-commerce has led to a rise in demand, and I think it's actually quite fascinating that e-commerce has led to a rise in demand for last mile deliveries, because it does make us question the sustainability of shopping practices as well, and how that's being delivered. So it's just something to think about outside of the actual delivery of goods itself. And at the moment, it's a niche innovation. So like a lot of work that Damien does in socio-technical systems, it's kind of like at a niche level, and there's a kind of network of actors who are converging with it now, with the likes of these pilots, where you have local authorities getting involved, private sector getting involved, and then academic institutions as well. And this kind of is really good for hopefully kind of penetrating the mainstream with e-cargo bikes, hopefully. So just a little bit about there's a reasonable amount of research on e-cargo bikes, but some of it, a lot of it looks at substitution potential. So looking at the actual radius of deliveries, taking 20-kilometer radius with an e-cargo bike, and a Byrne study looking at courier data from Byrne couriers, they found that it could replace 68% of car deliveries for that logistics company itself. And then for one in the city of Munich, looking at the weight of what's actually being transported around, for parcels in particular, they found for 55% of van deliveries for the city of Munich, e-cargo bikes could potentially replace, just using these kind of variables on their own. And it's important to note that in terms of any kind of substitution potential and cost effectiveness of e-cargo bikes, that something to consider is that if a cycling system becomes more mature and develops more, they'll become increasingly more competitive. So studies based on current conditions have limitations. So the aim of this study was to investigate the kind of critical determinants of e-cargo bike use amongst the small businesses taking part in the pilot. And there were two major things that were looked at. One was the e-cargo bike trip length, so just how long was it used for and kind of what distance, which is obviously quite important. And then the second one was around was it used or was it actually chosen in wet conditions of varying kind of millimeters of rain, basically. And it involved a 6-month discount for small businesses around DLR. And what we mainly analysed was tracker data just attached to the bikes, which was absolutely fantastic for people to provide and collect. So we could look at all sorts of things like speed, distance, whereabouts the e-cargo bikes were being used, and even stops where there might be a kind of trip chain that deliveries were being made. And the sectors that were involved, mainly food sectors, so like pizzerias, and I think there was a few cafes involved as well. So 7 out of the 12 participants, then flower company, cycle industry as well, motor industry as well, and business promotion company as well. And 3 cargo bike models are available, and the main one, which I actually think is this one here, had an 80 kg cargo capacity and 60-kilometer range.
Oops, sorry.
That's one. So that's just an example of some of the data that Bheilbigh collect on the e-cargo bikes, which is fantastic. You can see start, finish, and the various stops. And we use met air data as well to try and have a look at kind of what kind of influence weather would have, like rain and temperature during the day.
Sorry. Just if you sorry, Rob.
That's fine.
Apologies. Sorry, Robbie.
That's right.
Multitasking. Are we at the right place?
Oh yeah, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm probably taking a bit long, so I'll try and move.
No, you're perfect.
So what this involved was the modeling of the tracker data and weather data. So basically just trying to figure out what were the factors with the most influence on trip length and the choice of the cargo bike in wet conditions. And this was, I won't get into it, I'm no expert on it, Fahim would be the expert on this, but he used an intelligent data learning model to actually kind of figure out these results from about 1,801 trips in total over the 6-month period. So quite a decent amount of data. Yep, next one please. Thanks. What we found for trip length in particular is that the day of the trip and the week, trip day or trip week was not statistically significant. And then the critical determinants that we found from a variety of variables were actually weather conditions, interestingly. So they were, the main one was maximum daily temperature. So with colder weather conditions, there was far shorter journeys in the e-cargo bike. And then in weather conditions as well, there were less journeys from e-cargo bike. And then lastly, trip hour, which related to the traffic conditions. You can have peak and non-peak traffic conditions. So in non-peak traffic conditions, there was longer journeys. And in peak traffic conditions, there were shorter journeys, which is quite interesting when you think about it as a substitute for getting through the traffic. If that, sometimes that's how it's framed. And I'm sure you're able to talk about that yourself with your experiences. So that's just a little table from the actual article, which is available as a preprint. So there is a link at the end of this presentation. But as you can see, the normalized importance here, the major critical determinant was daily max temperature. And then the second one was daily rainfall, and close behind then was trip hour. So with non-peak hours having longer journeys. So during the kind of peak traffic hours, it was less. Thanks. And in this, in wet conditions, whether the e-cargo bike was going to be chosen or not, as opposed to some alternative like car or van, temperature was the greatest determinant. And so when it was colder, when it was wet and cold, it was far less choice of the e-cargo bike. So it seemed like a kind of combination of weather conditions really put people off using it. And all variables for this, so like temperature and trip hour and all that, were all statistically significant. So there was actually a lot of variables seem to affect this, but the biggest one by far was the temperature. If it was cold, there'd be less use of the e-cargo bike. And you can see here, daily max temperature. This one has by far the most normalized importance out of the lot of these, but although it did count, it did affect the e-cargo bike mode choice. So some conclusions. The 2 basic points, you can figure twice actually, that's right. Are that small businesses in this particular context, really depends on the context. I'm sure DCC it might be different. We're more likely to cycle further in warmer and drier weather conditions, and we're less likely to cycle further in colder and wetter conditions. And we're more likely to cycle in wet conditions if it was warmer. So weather was actually a really big determinant, which for me at least was quite a surprise. So what does this mean? There's loads of different ways you can interpret it. With this study, we don't have a huge amount of answers about that, but just some kind of observations based on some literature is that there could be concerns around slipping a loaded e-cargo bike. So having a really heavy e-cargo bike in wet conditions and not having a lot of experience in using it or maybe even training could affect the use of it. And it's interesting because obviously with cycle spaces, it's a complicated relationship between e-cargo bike use and different kinds of cycling infrastructures because they're not necessarily designed for that. So that could be another element for example, qualitative research. Next one, please. So a lack of access maybe to waterproofing and insulation. With the actual e-cargo bike itself, there is access to that, at least for waterproofing. But for the rider, who may not be used to cycling in all weather conditions, there's a lot, as we all know, there's actually a lot to learn in trying to be an all-weather cyclist. So maybe as someone who is delivering using a van or whatever, this could be a massive change. And as well, a lot of people in this pilot we're small business owners who are cycling it themselves too. And yeah, and the obvious one as well, access to an alternative delivery mode. If you're not a cycle courier company and have access to an alternative, well then that is obviously going to affect it a bit. And obviously there's a huge amount of cycle logistics companies that just use bicycles, so weather conditions won't affect how much journeys they make in trip. So that's just something important to point out. It's obvious. And yeah, one of the big things that we interpreted from this was that it does suggest patterns of fair weather use, maybe cultural aspects of cycling in certain weathers, certain different kinds of weather conditions. But as I said, they're just some kind of narrow interpretations. There's plenty more on paper, and there's plenty more that could be kind of followed up with more in-depth, I suppose, investigation, exploration with the interviews, focus groups, or other kinds of methods. And yeah, just a quick announcement then to finish. That's all right.
Wait, just talk about it. Sorry.
Oh yeah, thanks.
Just the references.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, and as Hugh from Bleeper was just saying, if anyone had any suggestions about e-cargo bike training, that would be an interesting discussion maybe later. So that's the paper that's under review. So if you want to check it out, feel free to. It should be hopefully will be published soon enough. And then
I'll share it in the chat later.
oh thanks, yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah, just sit down.
no expense spared.
So just Professor Brian Caulfield and myself will be locally organising the Cycling Society Symposium this year. So it's been on for I think nearly 20 years in the UK and was founded there. And so first time coming to Dublin, it's a really fantastic conference. A lot of people in the campaign have been in it before, multiple times, including myself. And it's going to, we have a call for abstracts out at the moment, and it's welcome from everyone really. We want loads of people in the room, lots of different types of sectors and experiences and stories. So feel free to submit. And the theme this year is critical tensions in planning for cycling, which I think is quite important at the moment anyway. It always is, but hopefully there'll be some good submissions. So
Thanks so much, Robbie.
Thanks for it.
Thanks a million. So interesting, bang on time. Can't wait to ask some questions afterwards. Okay, our second speaker is Neasa Bheilbigh. Neasa is the chair of Cyclist.ie. She's based in Galway in the Galway cycling campaign. And she also is involved in the cycle bus and is a primary school teacher and a mom of 2 kids. So she is a really busy person. Neasa will tell her story, but the gist of it is she always was a cycle commuter and always enjoyed cycling to work. And when she had children, like a lot of parents, she got nervous about putting her children on the bike. And during COVID, she rediscovered the joy of cycling with children and went, how can I make this work? And cargo bike came into their life and changed everything. So I hand you over to Neasa and her lovely story.
Thanks very much, Ellen. I suppose my presentation is just really a load of photos showing you what life is like, and I suppose what prompted us to choose a cargo bike as a family. So if you can flick it on there, Connor, you can probably just keep flicking through. So these are, this was me just during the lockdown with Macdara, rediscovering cycling. I was cycling with the cycle bus at this time, but I would never have brought him with me. I just didn't have the confidence to do it before lockdown. And then discovered the joy of cycling with the child and how much you get out of it and how much they get out of being connected with their environment and their surrounding and meeting their neighbours and everything. So we had number 2 as well around the same time, and I had to bring Anya, figure out how to bring Anya Macdara with me. Also, Macdara was starting at a Neenra. Now, I don't think you can make it out on that third photo, but we call this the hill of death. It's the hill that goes on and on and on for about 2 kilometers, and it's hard enough to walk, let alone cycle. So this was one of the big motivations for us to get a cargo bike. So if you can pop it on there, Connor. So this is them happy out. Anya was in her maxi cozy when we first started off. So we would just click the maxi cozy in, and Macdara was across from her. Most of the time very nice to her, holding her hand, and it was just lovely to see that their kind of relationship developing in front of me as I cycled along. Macdara reading his little books, and then as Anya grew up, she was sitting beside him, so they'd be chatting away as they went along. On to the next one, Connor. So one of the big things for me as well is that I could continue cycling and marshalling with the cycle bus, which is part of my work. I suppose I start work earlier than most teachers. I start work in the morning when I meet the kids at our first stop on the cycle bus. So having the cargo bike meant I had the children in front of me, controlled environment with my own two children, and I was able to make sure that the other children were safe as we went along. As you can see, as a teacher, you have to bring random stuff to school from time to time. I think that the photo there down by the beach, I was carrying 30 school bags. We decided to go to the beach one day. Now, usually if you had a car, you'd fire all the school bags in, but you're not able to walk with the children then. But the beauty is of this was I was able to fire all the school bags into my bike and walk with the children as well. So better than a car. On to the next one.
Well, I just like Neasa that you can carry a car in your cargo bike. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was it. Carry a car. that was yeah, one of the props for school. So shopping, we do the big shop like every other family, and I can do the big shop with the two children with me. Some days I might go off and do the shopping on my own. What I found is we tend to shop more locally and more frequently as well, because it's just really easy to swing up past the butchers or swing in and get what you need on the way home. It's not a big palaver having to go to the shops anymore. You can just pull up, run in, run out. You don't have to go parking and all that jazz. So it's super handy. You can get your bag cans or craft beers now we can afford, because we don't have to pay for petrol and insurance. And pick up your takeaways, pop over to B&Q for some timber or whatever. And yeah, Macdara tends to eat his snacks then on the way home as well. So it's grand. So shopping, not a problem at all. And there's a 200 kilo payload in the bike that we have. It's a Reese Muller load 75. So you could bring a rhino home in it. It's an absolute machine. So on to the next one. This is just an example of it. Like, this is me going to B&Q last spring, loading up 4 big massive bags of compost that I could barely lift myself. I was kind of showing off now, in fairness, with this one. And then I got out to the bike and I was going, Jesus, is this actually going to work? And I was like, I literally had loads of room left at the back and in the panniers and everything. So I was like, I could have gone back in for another 4 bags. But anyway, on to the next one there, Conor, please. So one of the amazing things is holidays, right? You forget Spain, all that kind of jazz. Lads, this is it. You've got the 2 kids there. You could drive, you could cycle for 8 hours. If you were in a car, you'd be pulling your hair out. On the bike, it's just amazing. I mean, we've gone down to the Byrne for the last 3 years in a row. Stuff like a red squirrel might appear in the middle of the road, and you can just stop and you can just look at these little magical moments unfolding, and you're just constantly connected with your surroundings. Every journey is part of the holiday now. It's not about the destination anymore. It's the adventure that you have along the way. It's just incredible. I'm getting emotional now even talking about it, but it has absolutely been life-changing for us. So anyway, on to the next one. And this bike, again, will bring you anywhere. Lads, it brings, the car will be stuck and you'd be getting towed out by a tractor. The bike can go down any kind of terrain. It's got dual suspension. We've actually got 2 batteries, so it's got 100 kilometer range, even up whatever hills and down these kind of roads and everything. And I'm not selling the Reese Muller specifically here. I'm just saying these are the potentials of, if you find your fit of cargo bike. If you want something for the city, that's grand, but we have something that brings us absolutely everywhere now. So on to the next one, please, Conor. And even date nights. So we don't bother with the taxis and bus a lot of the time. I hop in. Sometimes I'm cycling Neil back home because he might have had one too many, but which did happen on my birthday actually. So, I was grand. I was actually grand cycling Neil home. So which just goes to show, like, a small 5'3" person can cycle a 6-footer home in this, and it feels totally grand. Trips out to my parents' house are brilliant. So it's a 5 kilometer along the main road in the car. You would not cycle this road. It's the R336. It's a coast road out to Spittle. Horrible, horrible road to cycle on. But because we've got the e-cargo, we can take the back roads. It's 12 kilometers, but it's just a beautiful cycle. And again, we just do that there and back, and it's no bother at all. Lovely quiet roads, no traffic, as we've been promoting a lot in Cyclist.ie. These are the rougher roads that we want to develop, and they're waiting for cargo bikes to use them. So On to the next one. And it fits on the commuter trains. Obviously, we'd love it to go on every train, but at the moment we've discovered it does go on the commuter train. So we've been able to kind of bounce out to Gort or down to Ennis and start our journeys from there. This summer, we're going to go to Limerick and take off from there and head down to Kerry, because we reckon Macdara might be feeling he needs to cycle himself the following summer. So this is going to be our big last hurrah trip. So we're going to go all the way to Kerry down to the Greenways there on it this year. But it's just to show, again, the potential of those multimodal journeys, that if it fits, you can go anywhere with a cargo bike in your family. On to the next one. And again, the biggest thing for us is the time that we have together as a family on this bike. Again, the holidays are just cycling into town together. It's not just a passive kind of movement where you're moving from one place to the other. I don't know, it's just our interactions with each other, our interactions with our neighbours, with our environment. And then all the spin-offs that come from being falling in love with a bike like this. It's the advocacy groups and meeting different people and being inspired by different people, and just a nod, I suppose, to the women that went before me on cargo bikes and would have kind of given me the confidence to jump on a cargo bike. I remember the first day I went on the cargo bike, I was kind of like, Jesus, this is a bit mad. But it was people like, let's say, Orla Burke down in Cork, or Joe Sachs-Elridge up in Limerick, and Una Morrison in Dublin. I remember seeing them on Twitter and just going, geez, well, these women can do it then. It's not just the big burly Alan Dees or is a Citizen Wolf that can do this by cargo bike. I can do it as well. And definitely just give it a go. It'll take a couple of days to get the hang of it, but honestly, it feels like having a superpower when you're on a cargo bike. So that's my spiel. So everybody go out and get that cargo bike allowance and go and buy one. That's it.
Neasa, that was fabulous. Thank you very much. That was a gorgeous presentation. I felt teary too. That's not unusual. I'm really looking forward to people being able to ask you a few questions at the end. Okay, we're stepping on. Okay, our next speaker is Paddy Byrne from Byrne's Pharmacy in Dublin 4, and I've been following Paddy on Twitter for a while and just amazed by what he does. And Paddy gave me some stats before he came on. He said that they've always tried to do their local deliveries by bike, but they had to use van for bigger deliveries. He said since they got the cargo bike, he's done 5,000 kilometres, saved 750 litres of diesel, saved over 2,000 kilos of CO2. And transport with the equivalent of 4 by 40-foot containers of goods and cargo. So I'm dying to hear what Paddy has to say. Big welcome, please, for Paddy Byrne.
I didn't lose 1 pound. Yeah, we've always tried to deliver by bike, but when that's your daily delivery, it's not easy on the road of bike. Somebody might like to lift 2 of these for me. See, when the weights your car around the place. So try that.
Mind your back.
Do them, see what you think. Health, safety. I would try for the health and safety, but okay, you're not going to do that on a normal bike. I move basically 4 of these now a month on my cargo bike. So that just gives you an idea of what this has done and how it's changing. So if you want to click on there, I'll just explain a little bit about where it all started. So we are 6 full-timers, and as you can see, 4 of us, that's not a bad percentage. We are recruiting at the moment. If you know any cyclists, that'll help our numbers. So that would be good. But you know, deliveries on bikes weren't always possible until I got this thing. And it arrived in December. Never get a cargo bike in December. Right? Bad idea. So, you know, that expression, it's like riding a bike, as Neasa has already said, doesn't apply to cargo. It's totally different. And it does take a bit of getting used to.
Is that, that's a 2-wheeler though, right?
Two-wheeler. Yeah. So it takes a bit of getting used to. But once I got used to it, bad weather. Yeah, rain is fine. But if it's icy and that thing's fully loaded, you don't want to go out with it. So when you were talking about the journey times out in Dunleary, if it's icy at all, you can't go near it. That is the one thing. But other than that, rain is fine. It doesn't bother you. You can cycle in the worst nights in Dublin, no problems. But rain, ice certainly does cause an issue. So I started kind of really getting into it probably in kind of March of last year. And I was gently breaking myself in through December and then into March, and suddenly my journey every day that takes me 11.8 kilometres from Ballsbridge to the top of Stocking Lane in Rathfarnham was now done every day on the bike. And every day I have 6 of those boxes loaded into it, and off I go. Fair amount of weight. It takes me 35 minutes to get up there. It used to take me 30 minutes in the car. It takes me 30 minutes to get down. It used to be the same in the car. And in fact, traffic wise now, because volumes have increased so much, I'm probably actually now definitely saving time. So much better for my health, and much better for my headspace, and better for the environment and the old pocket of 750 quid worth of diesel that I didn't have to spend. So it has been, I'm going to click on there, it has been fairly transportable. So that's a typical load, and you'll see ET has become a great marketing toy. So I'm actually now using this as extra bits of marketing, and you'll see more coming up on that. But that'll be a typical payload going up to Rathfarnham. If you click on there. So that's my Bheilbigh tracker that Robbie mentioned. That gives me feedback on what I do every day. It's also a security device, because if somebody moves the bike, the alarm goes off in my pocket. So it's actually very reassuring. You said I was the owner of this cargo bike. I'm not. I'm the renter of this cargo bike. It started as a pilot through Dublin City Council in Bheilbigh. I signed up for it. That pilot finished last December, and the bike is still here. So if you want to know was it a success or not, well, obviously the bike's still here. It has to be a success. Okay. And I have to say, the guys in Bheilbigh and Dublin City Council were brilliant the whole way through the pilot. And Bheilbigh have been really good looking after me ever since. Meet lots of them around the place. We are growing in numbers. So every time I met one, I tried to pull up and take a photograph of me. I got a photograph of Paddy, right? Most people will know Paddy from Small Changes. But I couldn't keep up with him. He was gone. I did 5,000. I think he was on like maybe 10. So he put me to a bit of shame. Don't click on there. So as I say, you know, I've turned into a little decoration for the team, and it's actually a bit of fun. It gets a little bit of a smile on people's faces. So needless to say, St. Patrick didn't drive the Stakes out of Ireland is the theme for this year for me. He cycled. So I'm going to click on there. I run the Tidy Towns in Ballsbridge, and I was doing a thing last February with a group of transition year students where they were painting a mural on a wall beside the Dodder. And I had a load of paint to bring down to them, loaded it all into the cargo bike. Brought it down, brought it back every evening, and suddenly went, hang on, there's another thing I can use this for. This can become my Tidy Town support vehicle. So if we click on there, you'll see the guys in Bheilbigh gave me a loan of a trade. So just like Neasa has our compost, I have a bin. That bin gets filled with, I think, what are they? They're 240 litre bins. So I would often have 2 of them on it. I am very lucky that I can draw my water for summer bedding plants from 2 wells. But my problem was I was transporting it from the wells to the plants, particularly when they're in the middle of the road. Now I can actually pull up on the bike with 240 litres, water the flowers, go back and fill it again if I have to, and it's brilliant. It is absolutely changed that. But also, even from my Tidy Towns points, it squared that circle of the environment. I had actually wanted to draw water out of the Dodder, wasn't allowed because of fisheries. There's no wells in the middle of Ballsbridge, but there's one in the ODS and one in the Cricket Club that I'm allowed to use. So that actually means I'm not using tap water on plants, which an awful lot of people actually end up doing. So that actually for Tidy Towns has been brilliant. So if you click on there, and you can see it's quite long when you actually put the trailer on it, but you can get massive amounts of stuff done. I still do a bit of building work every now and again. The trailer has now become my builder bike, so it works for that as well. I'll click on there. I had a group out from Google doing Tidy Towns with me. We did a big cleanup along the Dodder, and all those blue bags, they all went on the trailer. All have to be dropped off to Dublin City Council. Right. So the whole thing's done by bike. All the brushes and ladders and everything else all onto the bike. So it really works. I'll click on there. So now I also work in a hospital, and I'm after getting 2 more bikes for people with disabilities. So I've a 2 together bike and a wheelchair bike as well. So if you click on there, you'll see them. So that's the 2 together bike. So it's specifically for people who suffer from neurological diseases where And they can't cycle a bike anymore, but if they can use their legs, they can't steer, but they can pedal away, and they're sitting side by side. It's actually really fun and it's really nice. The other one then is just roll your wheelchair up on the ramp and away you go. Similar enough to the ones that the guys have in Dundee. So I have to say it's been a very successful scheme for me, and very happy. That's it.
That was brilliant, really interesting, and just as interesting as I thought it would be, and I had no idea about the tiny towns. So, started off the Dutch Bike Shop, but Astrid started off the Dutch Bike Shop in 2011, if I'm correct.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, and originally was out in, you had a shop in Goatstown at one stage, and now you're
That's
out.
right.
And I think Astrid was one of the first bike shops in Ireland, not the first, one of the first bike shops in Ireland to bring cargo bikes into Ireland. And also Astrid is, as you well probably know, a native of the Netherlands, so she's seen cargo bikes in the wild for many years. Like I, for example, first time I saw a cargo bike was in 2009 in Cambridge. I'd never seen one before. I thought, what is this amazing contraption? How can I get one? And I wish I'd known Astrid. I wish the Dutch bike shop with Astrid had been around then, so I could have bought one with my kids who still small. So take it away, Astrid.
Hello, everybody. Well, unlike everybody else, I didn't make any PowerPoint slides or pictures, or I'm just winging it tonight. So I'm Astrid. I'm the owner of the Dutch Bike Shop. I think I've met quite a few of you there. I see a good few familiar faces. Hi. And so yeah, we started the Dutch Bike Shop back in 2011. And I think together with Olivier van der Elst in Greenair, we were the two bike shops selling cargo bikes. Now, my main focus with cargo bikes is for family transports. I have a few that would be suitable for businesses, but my main my main business would be families. Cycling with kids. That's how the Dutch Bike Shop started. That was my aim, and that's where my idea come from, and that's what I've been focusing on for the last 12 years already. Wow. So we sell brands, as the name suggests, from the Netherlands. That's what we focus on, and there is a one or two Danish bikes in there as well. I should have prepared better for this. Yeah, I was more hoping that people would just have questions for me, and that's how I could keep the conversation going. But yeah, so cargo bikes for kids, like there's the different models that have come, and they've improved a lot over the years. The bike I see here in the room, it would be based on a two-wheel Babu City. I don't know if it's a rally or if it's a Babu, but they're basically the same bikes, which normally you'd have two kids sitting on a bench and an option to put a second bench in the front for a third child, and suitable kind of from nearly, well, but they would say 2 months, I'd say, with the state of the Irish roads, and keep it at 4 months when the baby's head has built up a little bit more strength for dealing with some of the potholes that just come across. And then there's the three-wheelers, which are normally for people who are a little bit less secure in themselves. And I find my customers, most of them, if they're confident cyclists, they would go for a two-wheel bicycle like there is there to cycle with their kids. But some small people as well, or people who aren't just as balanced and who are a little bit worried about the amount of traffic around them, would opt for a bike on three wheels, so there's no balance issues. And yeah, it's a big slow machine. And sorry, somebody's coming into the room. But yeah, it would do the job quite well for carrying even more kids. Yeah, what I really should have prepared.